passionate about Cleveland sports.
He's going in, touchdown!
Browns, Indians, Cavs, the Big Ten, and more.
Cleveland is a city of champions once again!
Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and beyond.
A swing and a drive to deep right!
Here are your hosts, Andy Billman and Jarid Watson.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and Beyond. He's Andy Billman, I'm Jarid Watson, and the Cleveland Browns have filled most of their coaching slots at this point. We all know Freddie Kitchens is the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Freddie had spent the week making some phone calls into local Cleveland sports talk radio stations, making friends with some of the media, joking around. He even made a joke about a bus driving joke at one point on one of the shows that I was listening to. I think it was the Bull and Fox. So he's making himself quite at home, and Cleveland fans have been happy thus far. Andy, when it comes to Freddie Kitchens, I bought my dog pound hoodie, by the way, that the Browns made their own version of that. It's not the Nike version, but they do have their version of that sideline hoodie that Freddie was wearing. How are you feeling at this point?
I mean, I think, let's take in two different places here. This is the annual honeymoon stage.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you there were people that loved, even though we laugh at it now, Chudzinski. I bet you there are people that sat back and loved Hugh Jackson 2 or 3 years ago.
I know I did.
This is so there's always a honeymoon period. So this is the honeymoon period where, you tell bus stories. Everybody loves your sweatshirt. What was your favorite moment when you got the call that you're the Browns coach? That goes par for the course. This is always a good period to be the Browns head coach or any new head coach. This is a fun period. Jared, it's very hard when you get this kind of hire to mess up the good vibes. So he's got a lot of good vibes going for it. I think part two, though, is this feels very different than some of the other hires in the past. Mm-hmm. I thought the only other hire that came to mind was not Shermer, but was the hire of Holmgren. When Holmgren came over with Mangini, that was the first time I got excited. That next season, it was terrible.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the big change. I thought that was like look out league. that was my feeling.
the way the year ended, it just you got very excited about that. I'm more excited about this Freddie Kitchens Baker Mayfield movement. There's no question. More exciting. It's hard not to get excited, Jared, to be honest with you. I was trying to find ways to temper my reactions today. Even I pulled a couple of his quotes. I think the one is the last one that I think it's just staying out there, everybody. He basically, towards the very end of a press conference, when he did his opening statement, said, "I will close with this. Everything will always center around winning the Super Bowl." When you hear something like that and you're a Browns fan, you do you go, wow, that's nice, but how realistic is it? It's also nice to hear it from someone like Freddie Kitchens, and you kind of believe it. And you start to get that feeling. Jared, I guess it's one thing to say it, and it kind of gets thrown away. I thought when he said that, along with some of those other comments on Monday, I thought they stuck. I thought they really hit home with people.
Well, you know what? I'm used to these coaches coming in with tempered expectations. I don't remember a lot of and not to say Freddie's making promises, but nobody's coming out talking about what the goal should be for every team. When we're talking about the Browns, it's always, we're looking to improve this area. We want to get better here. No. Freddie's talking about the fundamental aspects of why they play the game. We want to win games, and we want to bring home the Lombardi Trophy. End of story. Nobody else has really said that. Everyone's been afraid to say that, probably because they don't want to write checks that their butts can't cash. Freddie does not seem to shy away from that, though.
It also is going to help that he's carrying over on a team he already coached for. Mm-hmm. He's already a big part of. And you can already feel that kind of movement as well. This is not an unusual sidestep. Dorsey's been here now for a year. Most of the internal staff for the Browns is not changing over, so everything stays there. That's the one big benefit of this hire that I don't think everybody's pointed out that needs to be pointed out. If there's one big benefit, no matter how you feel on the Freddie Kitchens hire, you have to understand him staying and being a coach last year on the field, even as an interim OC, is going to prove very beneficial because there's not a reacclimation process.
Right.
There's not going to be a lot of process of like, who are you? What's your name? Freddie's been around the team for a whole year. He knows everybody on the team pretty much. He's going to have a good sense. He's going to have I bet you he's not going to say this. I'm sure he's already made some judgment calls in his head, Jared, about the things he wants to do. Right. He's going to sit down and discuss it with his team. He's going to discuss it, more importantly, with the coaches. But I'm pretty sure he goes like, hey, so-and-so, I kind of have a vibe on him. Here's what I'm really thinking here. So I think that plays into a big step forward. I also thought, and I don't think these things can be overlooked at times, I thought it was nice to how he told Baker and the players, be like, hey, take a break from this, get away from this right now, and be a human being for a little bit. And the reason why I like that timing is next year is such a big year for this team. We all know it. That's not a hidden statement. That's not a shocking statement. It's a huge year. The Browns have really probably not said that since the Romeo Cornell year, honestly, when they came off the 10-6 year. So this is the first time in a while. Expectations are way up. Even with Mangini's second year, I don't think the expectations were high. This team, they're going to be so high. I thought it was good of them to say, take a break, get relaxed, because, when you come back here in the spring, it's going to get geared up quick. Even in the spring, Jared, I think it's going to get geared up fast this year.
I think we're going to be able to tell real quick, too, something that we can't. We hear a lot of talk about, opinions of the coaching staff that he's bringing in and that he's building. And people seem to be high on this list of names as well. I, on the other hand, know how, just thinking of group dynamics, I'm really hoping that Freddie picked guys that are going to mesh well with each other and that are going to mesh well with his system and with his style. I'm not doubting that he didn't do that. But I'm going to need to see that before I start making opinions of the names of everyone that he's hired, from offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and on down. We can make these opinions about those hires, but really at the end of the day, what do we know until we see it happen on the field,
Well, that's right. That's why I'm not big into let's break down secondary coach, linebacker coach. It's really right now, it's the big three. Even the special teams coordinator, look, I hope special teams doesn't become a problem like last year. That should be self-sufficient, you would think. So that aside for right now, it's really Wilks as defensive coordinator, Tom Monken's the OC, and it's Freddie. Those are your three. There's other parts and pieces out there that are going to float, but let's be fair. Those are the three right now that are going to really come to attention. Yeah. Those are the three that are going to have to field questions during the week and a press conference. So those are the big three. I did think it was good of Freddie, too, to announce real quickly he wants to collaborate with Monken, but he's going to be the play caller.
Yep.
Thought that was very wise of him to do that early. And again, we kind of talked about this in the last podcast. I think he hired a good staff that wasn't just a bunch of Freddie Kitchen buddies. And I like that about that. I thought that was really wise. I mean, how many times have you gone through these processes and you're like, all right, Shermer, so we're going to get a bunch of homegrown guys, especially felt that way.
It's like a weird version of nepotism that goes on, the certain names. Everyone, you get picked because of your name, and that's, I don't know. It's like politics sometimes. If they know your name, you're going to get hired.
It's like I said, I thought Shermer and Mangini, you could just feel the trees come through here, the family. And this time, I'm not saying none of these guys are Freddie Kitchen guys. That's not the case either. But you can tell Freddie made the best decisions for himself and for the team. Even if relationships there were not really built as well as others, he made the right decisions what he felt. So I like that about him. Again, I thought he publicly came off really well. I think the one thing that's not a bad thing or a good thing, nationally, I don't think it made a big splash, Jared, if I'm being truthful. I think that it pretty much – I just think it kind of was a pebble in the pond. I think the Greg Williams hire was actually a bigger announcement than Freddie Kitchen's hire, which just says a lot about New York media.
Wonder if part of that with the New York media also has to do with that. Seems like a strange pairing to me between Adam Gase and Freddie and Greg Williams, in my opinion. What do you think about that? I
think right now, Jets fans need to really take a breath. Because we've had teams like that, Jared, where expectations are not high, but they're kind of, let's say that they are ramped up. I think that's the right word for the Jets, are ramped up. And you go, okay, you got your quarterback. But when I watch the Jets, we've had Isaiah Crowell. Is Chubb better? Yeah, Chubb's much better. Does any of the wide receivers really fear you compared to what the Browns have? Not really. Nope. Defense, okay, maybe there's some advantages there, but there's not a big difference in landscape. And truthfully, from what I saw from Darnold, that I did not like, which I did like from Baker. Baker lost a couple games here and there, Darnold played well, but he never won the game that stood out.
Yeah.
I could point out the Broncos game. I could point out the Panthers game. I can point out a couple other games, even the Ravens game earlier in the year at home. I can point those like Baker really won these games, did a nice job here, really got the win in a big spot, made some big throws,
Right.
did whatever he needed to do to win the game.
Certain drives really stand out too. I mean, you can have a top 10 list of just individual drives throughout the season that stand out and are memorable, in my opinion, from Baker as well.
Yes, I don't think Darnold really had that. I'm not saying he played poorly, but Darnold kind of had a going through the motions year, which, by the way, is not atypical of a rookie. But it just wasn't as much excitement. You could tell with Baker, you could tell with this team, they advanced quickly. They went into hyperdrive. Mm-hmm. We all saw it in real time this year. The Jets, it just didn't happen that way. And I think what it comes down to is, we in the past have been caught in these Romeo Cornell. Pat Shermer was another. Mangini was certainly another example. Hugh Jackson, the popular hire.
Right.
Adam Gase, by far this year, was the popular hire. People can take it one way or the other. The big advantage, too, was Peyton Manning plugged them. When you get a Peyton Manning plug, it's going to carry you a long way, right, Jared? The thing is, you add a Greg Williams, and people go, oh, here we go, right. Greg Williams.
Yeah, but what did Greg Williams' defense look like for the Cleveland Browns?
Very average at best. Very average at best.
Bad at stopping the run. Good at playing in the red zone on occasion, half the time. But other than that, giving up a lot of big plays like a college football team, I think sometimes too.
Well, I thought actually with the defense, what they just did is they allowed teams to move down the field.
Yes.
And Greg Williams really basically said to people, hey, look, we're going to allow you to move down the field. We're not going to allow you to get 80-yard touchdown passes. We're not going to allow you to get the big plays. The thing about the Greg Williams team that became very obvious even the year before, they did not have any real answers against plays like, hey, it's 3rd and 5. Can we stop them? Greg Williams had a hard time in his defense stopping teams.
I think when I talk about big plays, I'm talking about, again, continuing not to confuse that with those, long passes. The secondary did great for this team. I'm not going to knock
much
them,
especially
with the injuries.
Much better.
I'm talking about big plays though. Unfortunately, it's on the run game. And that's.
Yeah, oh God.
We're talking, 10, 15-yard busts. That can't happen as often as it happened last season.
There's a lot of games this year where the Browns were in 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 1. If you really think back about it, because they had these big gains and carries. And the other thing that is very rare in NFL football, but boy, I could point out Gordon from the Charger game, Lynch from the Raiders game comes to mind. Kamara from the Saints game comes to mind. Those running backs took over the game, and that doesn't happen much. But Kamara, I would actually say, too, if they would have won McCaffrey, the Browns had no answers for McCaffrey in that game. So McCaffrey, Gordon, Kamara, and Lynch all really took over the games of points. They only won one of those games.
Yeah.
They won the game against the Panthers. There's other games. When you have running backs that go off like that, it doesn't matter that you're not a quarterback and you go off. It's impossible to stop. And the game, again, I've been referencing a lot in this podcast. The Lynch game will stick out to me like no other. There was no excuse for that guy to be running as hard and getting big carries like that in that spot in the year. And
that's the point is, Jets fans, like I said, I just feel like it's a weird marriage between them two. Of course, I wish nothing but the best for Greg Williams. It felt like Greg really wasn't getting the options that we expected him to get after leaving Cleveland. Part of that still might have to do with the Bounty Gate situation. I don't know why at this point. I mean, he's paid his penance in my opinion.
I think also Greg Williams kind of self-created his own imagery for that opening press conference as well. He didn't do himself any favors. I also think this, Jared. I think coaches around the league saw the same thing you and I saw. I'm not saying Greg Williams is terrible, but he's certainly not good. Like, these defenses weren't good. And the thing that really bothered me that I've been hearing a lot this week, which I agree, running game aside, running game defense stunk. It really was hard to point out who, along with Garrett, was really making big plays and big passing downs to hit the quarterback. Some days it was Ogunjobi, maybe Agba. I thought Agba did not play as well this year compared to the past two. And I think those things are going to have to – by the way, in fairness even to Greg, That's something the Browns need to really focus on next year, Jared. The front four needs more solidified. I agree with you, too, about the linebackers, but I'm more focused on the front four outside of Garrett.
Okay.
I really want the Browns – what the Browns need to do is what the Giants did back in the day in Super Bowl 42 and 46. Rush four and allow everybody else to play in space. Meaning, and to your point about linebacker play, that's where your linebacker can either go off and cover a running back or tight end or blitz the quarterback, but you don't have to rely on them 70% of the time of rushing the quarterback. The Browns right now, I think, is still in that end where it's like, if the Browns don't rush more than four, Jared, whenever the Browns just rush four guys, more times than not, the pressure wasn't there.
Right.
When they even sent a fifth guy, I saw it immediately, which, by the way, is better than 6 or 7. But the Browns need to get to a point where it's like, if you get 4 really good solidified guys on big third downs, they should be able to handle and anchor that line. So you're allowed to free up other players to get in the spot and get in the spaces. The Browns aren't there yet defensively. They're just not there yet. And we pointed out, too, Schobert needs to play better next year. Kirksey needs to be healthy next year. That's a big year for Kirksey. And, I think the big offseason topic, which we'll probably get to on Tuesday next week, what to do with Jamie Collins.
Yeah.
Is I've been hearing a lot of opinions about this, and I'm still on the fence. He has some plays. There's 4 or 5 plays during a game where I noticed, too, where it's like, wow, he's making a play. He really stands out here. And then there are plays where you see him get pushed around.
Yeah.
There are also plays, too, where he's not on the screen. And those are things, Jared, I think Jamie Collins, out of all these other players we talk about on defense, and maybe even on offense, I think he's going to be the hardest decision for the Browns because there's talent there. He can make big plays in big spots. He shows it in plays, but is he going to do it 4 downs every time? I don't know.
I mean, this is where
shown that yet.
We're going to have to look at. I mean, what does Todd Monken bring to this? I mean, because it could be the need for change was just on the coaching side of things. Right. We saw that with the offense and Freddie Kitchens. So if Todd Monken is of the mindset of playing to these guys' strengths and allowing them to focus on what they're good at, then maybe that helps as opposed to overall scheme. We've heard the entire time everyone throwing a fit about, I hope they don't hire somebody with a 4-3 or a 3-4 or switching over to a 3-4. At this point, the way the defenses are run anyways, does that even matter? I mean, if you just because it's a 3-4 doesn't mean you're not going to bring a 4. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily change the overall look of the defense.
Yeah, in today's NFL, you better have a 3. I mean, if you're going to run a 3-4, your front 3 better be amazing. They better be players that can really hold a line.
Well, yeah, and they don't have that right now, obviously.
And they don't have that. And by the way, most teams don't. That's a rare thing. I think the 3-4 is going to start going away. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, Jared, if you start seeing a lot more 5-2-4s or things like that, because again, the Browns really had to go with 5 guys most times. Mm-hmm. I saw on passing downs. It would be great to go with 4 to have one rover and allow that rover to either A, help out with the tight end and running back, or B, again, tack the quarterback. So that way he's completely a mystery to teams on what he will do play in and play out. The Browns don't have that luxury right now. By the way, I'm not saying that's not unique. Most teams don't. In fact, even these teams that are playing this weekend, Jared, a lot of those teams, they don't really stand out for defensive line play. So I guess it's because I saw it in my own eyes 10 years ago with the Giants being the Pats. If you have a strong front 4, like your quarterback on offense, everything else can kind of follow. The Browns right now, to me, I like Larry Ogunjobi. I think he's good. Myles Garrett's great. They need to get 2 to maybe even 3, a good backup pieces in there so they can rotate it, guys.
That's a huge thing, is the depth on that line too. I mean, there was 0 depth on that defense last year. Zero. And we had built some depth in the secondary, and that fell apart with injuries. So
it did, and again, and that's the thing that we got to be honestly with ourselves. The secondary coming into last year was so bad. That you had to almost focus, which the Browns did, of saying, this thing is so broken that we're just going to fix it, all about the secondary. And by the way, I don't blame them.
I don't know that it's fixed all the way yet either. I think they might have to spend another draft pick on the draft.
I agree.
Secondary.
I agree. I don't disagree with you. I think you can
A lot
argue.
of that comes down to me
I,
be worrying about Ward in his head, but yeah.
well, no. By the way, I know where you're getting at. I think, and again, it's too far down the road. We should say this for another podcast. But I think as we go down the road, everybody's going to have this trendy thing. Playmakers. The Browns use another playmaker. The more and more I think about it, Jared, I think it might be nice to get a couple defensive players that play big in big spots to really help out the Browns. That's the thing I see more deficient right now. Would I love a playmaker? Sure, absolutely. I mean, you can raise. I mean, it's almost like a shot of Bailey's in your coffee on St. Patrick's Day. Of course, right here, we all want it. But when you're going and you're really looking forward, the Browns have kind of shored up a lot of problems on offense in an 8-9 game span. The secondary, I would say the secondary is the one thing off the board. I think the secondary, they put so much work into the last 2 years. To put more work into that would be concerning to me. Pick up a couple free agents and figure out those last couple key, roster moves where it comes to guys in depth. But the front four and the linebackers, I would put some emphasis on that in the draft. I really would.
I can buy into that, especially when you're talking about the playmaker thing, because here's the deal. We're talking about Baker Mayfield. He's spreading the ball around to 6, 7, 8 guys on offense per game, right? Mm-hmm. So playmaker doesn't matter. That's not. I don't. Those guys, when they get their opportunities, are making plays. We're not limited to, we're not limited to, one or two who can make something happen. We've got guys on the field that when they're catching the ball, which was the only issue and it was a big issue, but it seemed to have slowly fixed itself throughout the season. Baker's spreading the ball around so much that do you think that he really wants a playmaker, or he's got everything he needs? I mean, if he trusts these 7, 8 guys, what are we talking about? You can spend the time on the defensive line.
Yeah, the only thing I see on the Browns where it comes to offense, outside the offensive line, you can always use a couple good offensive linemen, whether that's the draft or free agency. The Browns are definitely, I wouldn't say thin, but they're just right now when it comes to offensive line. They probably need 1 or 2 more guys there. Again, you can add your depth either way, the free agency or the draft. I don't care whether way. The only part I see outside of one more playmaker, which again, that's the trendy thing to say.
Sorry about my dogs, the other thing by the way. I don't know if you heard that.
No worries. But no worries. By the way, I was self-distracted by the Geico. These Geico commercials are doing roll down.
Yeah, they're bringing the old ones back.
In the background. When I'm watching Michigan and Wisconsin, so it kind of caught my attention. I apologize. But back to what we were talking about. I think the other thing, too, that I mentioned throughout the year, I wouldn't do it high in the draft. I would get one more running back. Duke, Chubb is great.
Absolutely.
1 injury away from being devastated. You need another running back there in the stable. I would really look hard for a good running back. Doesn't have to be first, second round. I don't care when you get them. I'm not that kind of. And running backs usually don't go that way, anyways. Pick someone up in the middle rounds. Maybe you get someone in the second round. I don't care, but you can't rely on Duke and Chubb to be healthy again next year.
No,
they got very lucky with that, in my opinion.
No, and you can't rely on Duke to be. Look, I just don't. I don't know that he's not a guy that you need to be handing the ball to often. I like him on screen plays, on something where he can do stuff with it, make something happen with his feet in space. He doesn't need to be trying to bust through the line. Let Chubb do that and get another big boy back. And I think that would help a ton. Absolutely.
I agree. We'll go more into the roster on Tuesday. That's kind of the preamble. And again, Freddie Kitchens, I think the wrap up is he had a very good honeymoon press conference week. Most coaches do, by the way. That's not unusual. I think Freddie's going to be really well liked in Cleveland. It all changes when you play that first game in September of next year. But until then, I think Freddie came off really well. I think Freddie's very likable. I think Freddie's a guy you could feel like you could talk to at a coffee shop or a restaurant or a bar and really get to know him. He's very honest and upfront. You love the words collaboration, and, you kind of like at the end. It's like, look, we're not going to mince words. We're here to win and go to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl. So, I can't really ask for much more of a press conference week from a guy. I thought he really came off well, and it maybe didn't make a big splash nationally. And by the way, I think that's a good thing, too. I don't think it needs to be a big celebratory thing for the Browns fan. They're to like him.
1 in 30 odds to win the Super Bowl next season. That's something that we haven't.
That's fair.
Those numbers that's better than 1 in 500, right?
yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's my point. Things are changing.
Yeah. Here's the one thing I will say though that I noticed again on this playoff run. I don't know what you took out of it. Then let's get to the weekend games. I really did, when you look at these teams that were in the divisional round, we played against the Chargers. We really got manhandled. Now, that could have been for a number of reasons, but we got manhandled early in the year against them. The Chiefs was the first game for Greg Williams, but again, that game was never really in question. The Browns really were kind of dominated from the snap.
No, but we still were able to look at. I know this isn't what we're going to talk about next season, but this season we can say it. We found positives on the offensive side of the ball during that game, and we were just glad to see that the team didn't completely implode.
Yeah, I agreed. And I think that's a thing, too. That's a big positive. I just think, and Freddie mentioned it, and I'm glad he did, and I'm glad he made it a point. The Browns didn't win the Ravens game to end the year. They lost that game. Mm-hmm. There are some big things here that need to be brought up that the Browns still have to go over. I love the Browns going the next year. I see the Browns being a big catapult into this next stratosphere, meaning they're going to be sniffing the playoffs. But if I'm being fair and honest and taking a step back, the Browns need to do some things on the field to prove that they're ready for weekends like this. Mm-hmm. I still don't think Jarid, and maybe this will change throughout next year, and I think it can, but as of today, still, the Browns still have some things to do in the game next year and in the season to really make these big runs.
Can you compete with the big boys?
And in big spots, when you're down 10, are you going to be able to really gear up, buckle down, and make some plays? That's the thing about the playoffs that it's been a reminder this year in watching. The Colts got down early, and you could tell they were out and they were defeated before the kick.
That was
Chargers were down early, and they were doused, and they were out in these games early. The Browns have to realize if you get down early, are you going to be able to take a stand? If you get a bad break and a turnover happens, or a replay flip, which happened to the Browns a lot, are you going to be able to handle that and conquer it? If I'm being truthful, Jarid, I think we need to see those things next year. So I don't want to douse cold water. This is a great time to be a Browns fan. But these realistic jumps of Super Bowl and getting there, it's like, hey, there's a lot that the Browns have to do to get there, Jarid. And I think they will. I think they're going to get there.
Maturity. There's a maturity that needs to come with a lot of those guys. Yeah.
Experience.
Yes.
And again, seeing in a big spot. I mean, again, the only thing I'll harp on, the Browns did not beat the Ravens at the end of the year. They lost. They had chances to win that game, and they lost.
Won that game.
Let's see. But Jarid, exactly. Yeah. It's time to start winning those games.
Yeah.
That's why that loss bothered me. I wanted that game. It's going to be interesting to see because the Browns are going to be put up in those spots. And there's something I do know. The Browns are not going to be taken lightly week to week anymore. They are going to have some juice in these games. And there's not going to be like, oh, it's the new Baker Mayfield and we'll see what's going on. It's Baker Mayfield and the Browns. They're coming to our house, or we're going to Cleveland. So those expectations have changed, not just in Cleveland, but nationally. Teams are going to get up to play the Browns, Jarid. So when you play the Arizona Cardinals late in the year, or if you do, and they're sitting there with only 2 or 3 wins, you better be ready to play them. Better be ready to play in a big spot.
Well, and let's also recognize, Andy, we're not even. I mean, big spot. We're talking Thursday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night game. We're going to be primetime games. It's going to happen far more often next season than it's happened in a long time. I have a feeling with this Browns team coming into this season. So the lights are on them. The big spotlight's going to be on them this season. There's going to be no doubt about that. And how are they going to react? So it's not even going to be necessarily just how are they going to play against these teams. It's how are they going to play against these teams with a national audience watching. There's more pressure there. Focusing on what happens on the field is really all they got to do. I mean, if they can do that.
No, it is.
Whew, if they can do that, and that means no more. We don't need, obviously, Hugh hasn't been hired anywhere, so we don't have to worry about any of that off the field silliness or any stare downs, nothing. They're going to have to stay focused on what happens on the field, and they're going to have to get over, hopefully, a lot of conversations have been had in regard to ignoring and forgetting about the last play, whether it be an awful call by the refs, which we saw happen. I think the Browns got apologized to by the NFL like 4 times all last season. they're going to have to be able to shake that stuff off big time. They cannot allow that to get in the way either.
No, I agree. I just think all these different things, you don't want to pour water in this situation because the Browns have so much good momentum, Jared. Yeah. But just realistic expectations and not so much wins and losses now. So I think we all believe the Browns are going to win a good amount of games to make a playoff run. It's making sure of like, hey, realistic expectations. Again, division playoffs. A couple things don't go your way. Because these teams this year, the Chiefs, the Colts, I think they're going to be back next year.
Mm-hmm.
There are teams that are kind of fading away. The Pats, the Steelers. I would argue also the
maybe
Ravens,
the Texans. What are the Texans going to be next season?
The Texans are going to be murky. But these teams like the Chiefs and Colts, I think they're going to be back next year.
And you can't. And I know we say this every year, but you can't say the Pats won't be back next year.
I think this. I'm confident. I'm not jinxing it. I think the Pats next year are going to take a little step back. I really do.
I actually brought it up to my wife. I said, I wonder if Tom actually sits down after the season if they can win this year. If maybe.
Well, he's already announced no. He's already announced that no. So I mean that's out. And Roethlisberger's back too. Not. There's no guessing there.
Ben's back.
Yeah, me too. The last thing to wrap up though, again. The Browns are going to have. I'm interested to see how the Browns play in these situations.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be down like that, but let's be honest. You go on a road game. You play a team, like the Niners. You're probably maybe looking around the Niners because they weren't that good the year before. You go there and you're down 14-0 like that in the first quarter. Can the Browns handle that? Make it a game and get back in that game.
Mm.
Those are the things and challenges I think that are ahead for this team, and I think they're going to happen, Jared. I think the Browns will do well in those spots, but I think those are coming. It's hard, Jared. It's so hard right now when you're doing all these things and you're running around. I will say, though, to wrap up, Freddie is the perfect guy I have found in these last 5 days of listening to him to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't think that 3 weeks ago. I was certainly more skeptical than others about him. After listening to him and really reading through his comments and transcripts, I think he's the guy. I really do.
Let me just say, it's amazing the perspective that you get in life when you go through something extremely traumatic like Freddie did, which was the possible loss of his own life. There's something that goes along with, I'm guessing, with having that what you could call a second chance. And I think Freddie's taking full advantage of that and living his life in a way that is going to play out really well on the football field in the future, I hope, for this Cleveland Browns team. That's
well said. Well said. Well said. I think the excitement and the good vibes feeling cannot be understated on this team right now. It is on an all-time high. With that said, you go into these championship weekends, Jared, and you're hoping, man, will that be the Browns next year at the 640 spot in CBS? Well, instead of be Pats Chiefs, will be Browns Chiefs.
I get goosebumps.
It does. It's exciting to think about.
Yeah.
So let's looking forward to this weekend. You got the Rams, Saints, Pats, Chiefs. I really thought last weekend, all these playoff games have had 8 so far. Anything with Philadelphia has been very good. I thought the Bears-Eagles game was fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's the best playoff game so far. I thought Eagles-Saints was right behind it. It was pretty good. Good excitement towards the end. Tip, pass, interception. Everything else, people can look and tell me things. I've not seen great football games. But I'm being truthful.
No.
Been a kind of a bad playoff run so far.
No, I never once, and I talked to some folks on Facebook towards the end of that Patriots Chargers game, and I said, raise your hand and be honest if you thought the Chargers had a chance in this game. I was surprised at how many of my friends actually responded with, I really thought that they had a chance. Andy, I never once thought that, we can go back and listen to the podcast. I'm pretty sure I said it. I think I said there's no way in hell they have a chance beating the Patriots. That Chargers game, they looked terrible. It was everything that I expected it to be. And a lot of those games kind of came off that way. The Ravens looked awful in their one shot. I mean, it's blah. I mean, that game with the Chargers, the whole game was awful, to be honest. But
yeah, the Chargers had a very blah playoff run in the win and in the loss. They kind of came and went. I think the Chargers are one of those teams that are going to be transitioning, actually. Phillip Rivers is not young. I think it's going to be hard for the Chargers to make another run with that team. I think the other team that's really going to be fascinating to watch from afar because they're going to be hyped for obvious reasons because of who they are as the Cowboys.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're going to be interesting to see what they do, the changes they make because you got your quarterback, you got your running back, You could always use a couple playmakers or two. Your defense really isn't that far.
Do you have your quarterback, though?
I think you do.
Oof.
It's not a star name, though. You're playing with a Joe Flacco type, which doesn't mean you can't win a Super Bowl. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. Eli Manning won a Super Bowl. These guys can win Super Bowls. You can do it. I think Dak Prescott actually fits that mold. The only thing about Dak, though, is he can't overcome a team and can't lift a team to victory. Yeah. It's hard for him to do that. And they just don't have it. And Dak does not have that in this team. Really, the guy who's going to do that is Ezekiel Elliott. That's the guy who's going to really have to do it.
Right.
And because he's a running back, that already detriments the team a little bit because he doesn't have the ball every time the ball's hiked. It's hard. But with that said, I think the Cowboys are the one team out of this 8 that hard to predict where they go from here next year. And we kind of tipped it off all throughout the podcast this year. The Eagles are already straining from what to doing with Wentz and what to do with Foles.
Well,
it's already straining.
I thought the last thing I heard was that Wentz was already flat out named he's the guy next season. That was
he is, but it's Jared. The way it's coming out, it's strained. Does that make sense? Meaning they are announcing it's Wentz, but it's not a clean. It's just not clean. It's just not.
Well, we know that's not good. I've never been a fan of quarterback competitions. I think they do nothing but cause uncertainty within an organization.
Right, and that's the thing. It's not going to be even a quarterback competition. Foles is a free agent. Foles is gone. So the thing that the Eagles have to realize, this is the year. And that's why it's strained. Wentz can't get hurt next year. It can't be one of these years again where Wentz misses games. It's a big decision ahead of the Eagles right now. And by the way, Foles is going to be gone. I don't think it's even a question. That's not the question here. The question is, can Wentz really handle the pressure that's going to be put upon him?
Yeah, I guess I forgot about that. There's plenty of teams that need a quarterback and are going to dive.
Oh,
they're going to dive on. They're going to dive on Foles the same way the Vikings did and with Kirk Cousins. The same way Kirk Cousins got his money, that Fitzmagic gets his money, is the same way that Foles is going to get his money here. That's how that's going to work out, I think.
He deserves it. Foles has won a Super Bowl, and by the way, he doesn't. Here's the weird thing: in a big spot, would you take Foles or Dak Prescott?
Oh, I'd take Foles.
I do.
Yeah.
If you're the Giants and you know Eli Manning might be on his way out, wouldn't you take a serious look at Nick Foles?
I told you, my opinion on Eli. Well, yeah, absolutely.
It's debatable where he's coming back or not, but again, it's just one of those things. It's things to watch, things in the offseason.
I was thinking that Foles might have eyes on him in Jacksonville and in Miami, but I thought the same thing with Flacco,
I think Flacco is going to be gone too.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have learned in sports, don't be surprised if Flacco and Foles come out hot next year. Don't be surprised. Doesn't mean it's going to continue, but don't be surprised. If they're Septembers, they are on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Playing with a burn.
Change of scene, chip on the shoulder.
Chip on the shoulder, especially Flacco. Flacco took a lot of humble pie this year.
He got burned, and it was painful. As much as I despise the Ravens, it was painful for me to see him on the sideline in that playoff game. And why will they not go to him? Why will they not? They were dug in, stubborn. This is our guy. Okay. We'll see. We'll see if this is your guy, Baltimore. We'll see. We'll see if Lamar's it.
We'll see is right. Rams and Saints lead us off at 3:00. That's both these games I think are very sexy. Actually, Patriots and Chiefs at 6:40. Last week I think I went 2-2 in these picks. I picked I went 3-1. The Eagles did cover, even though they lost. The Colts was the only game that really kind of fell on the side. I think all these lines are tough. It's been an interesting gambling discussion week because you can now in Vegas on these kind of games, you can actually bet straight up, but you have to put down 170 to win. So right now I believe the Saints and Chiefs, because they're the home teams, I think it's if you bet 150, 140, so you bet with the VIG, you can actually pick the Chiefs straight up. So there's a lot of good gambling. If people are interested in that stuff, if you pick the right sports book out there, there's a lot. This weekend and certainly Super Bowl, there's a lot more options out there to gamble on certain things that I think are interesting to look at. Both these point spreads are really thin. Just to break down quickly, as I know everybody's probably heard the back and forth of all these things, just to get my vibe on it, and we should both chime in. I think the first game to me is easy. If this game was in LA, I would be very different.
Yep.
This game's in New Orleans. It's in the Superdome.
Yep.
I thought the Rams at times looked like a team still that was learning their way how to win in the playoffs. I thought the Cowboys at times helped a little bit. I think the Saints took a big sigh of relief by beating the Eagles. You got to get to a point that the Saints finally have the rubber ball effect where the ball bounces back and they have a big effect and they play big. I think this is the week, Jared. I know they have not played well since the Cowboys lost. I thought they played better last week. I thought the fake punt really changed the whole game. I think the Saints figure it out and win. I think they cover the 3.5. I just don't think the Rams are ready for the Super Bowl.
So,
I think they're still a year away.
I agree with you on that 100%. We already know that the Rams did head into New Orleans already once earlier in the season. Same thing with the Chiefs and Patriots who played earlier in the season. But these are different looking teams too. Todd Gurley, I don't believe, played in that first game against the Saints, and he will be playing this game. So that changes things a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I like the line 3.5. I think that's about right.
Yes,
but I definitely would take the Saints. Saints to win, but I don't know how. I don't know how I'd pick the 3.5. To be honest, I think it might end up being
tough.
close.
It's tough.
That's a tough one to pick. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Saints and give the points though.
Okay. In the second game, you got Pats and Chiefs. The weather has now calmed. It was supposed to be like horrible ice bowl weather. It's going to be brutally cold, but nothing historical now. It sounds like now it's going to be in the low teens with the wind chill, which has happened in a lot of games. That's not too unique. The Chiefs did well last week in this kind of weather, so it isn't like they have not played against it. The Pats are the Pats. The Pats have played every type of playoff game, in my opinion, at this point. I think this one is very, very hard to predict, Jared. I just think this game,
the last one was a shootout, and I had no idea how it was going to end, and it ended with the last team to have the ball won the game, right? I mean that was it.
It's tough because I really want to see the Chiefs win this game. It would be a great story to see the Chiefs win.
The Patriots fans think that they love the underdog title this week. They got T-shirts for it and everything.
I gotta be truthful, Jared. If I'm in a gambling situation, I think I do too. I'm going to take the Pats. I don't love this pick.
Yeah.
I would not gamble this game. Yeah. I would stay very far away from it. I'm more intrigued by the Saints and Rams options there. I think Pats and Chiefs is an impossible spot because if you're being truthful with yourself and you look at the rosters, the Chiefs have a far better roster. They have more talent, and the quarterbacks are even. Because of age, their quarterbacks are even. We all know experience-wise, we all know in big spot-wise, Tom Brady can lap almost any quarterback in the field, historical or whatever else, to win these games. But, Jared, everything being equal, I just think it kills me and for how much I adore your wife, I don't want to see the Pats. But I think it's going to happen here. I think they find a way to win. I really, really, really hope I'm wrong.
I think somewhere in this game, the Patriots defense makes a stop that ends up being the deciding factor at the end of the day. I don't know where that stop happens. I don't know how it happens. It's either a turnover or a stop, but that's how it's going to be. And the Patriots are going to win. And I would not put any money on this game either.
Yeah, I would say very far away from this game for funs and giggles here. I do take the Pats. I think they're going to find a way to win. I think this game, if you're betting with real money, it's real dangerous, in my opinion.
Nope, that's why I went DraftKings.
Because Andy Reid,
I made up a couple of lineups. That was it.
Yeah.
I didn't bet the game.
Yeah. Here's what I would also say in this kind of game. And it's been talked about a little bit, but it's going to felt more if he loses. Poor Andy Reid. I'm such a big Andy Reid guy. This is a big game for him. It's one thing for Mahomes, and it's one thing for these other guys, and you never know if you get back to these spots. But I'll tell you, this, Jared, you can't get in a bigger spot for Andy Reid in your career. This is a big. You're at home. You played them early in the year. You lost on a close decision. This is the game. You finally get over the hump, and you finally progress forward. Big game for Andy Reid and these guys. And I'll tell you, this is what we talk about in sports. if the Chiefs go down early, you will feel the pressure at Arrowhead.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
if I were the Chiefs, in the coin toss, I would take the ball and try to score right away and put the Pats on their heels.
I genuinely am curious to see how the cold affects. I know that we're not talking about it being as cold, but I want to see how it affects. I mean, what's your opinion on this? Will the cold slow down the Chiefs at all? Because I don't think I think the cold plays into the Patriots' favor.
Yeah, I do too. The thing that really helps this out is we saw what we saw with the Colts. It wasn't exactly a warm summer's evening. I mean, it was cold and snowy, and you saw Tyreek Hill, and you saw the team play very well.
Yeah.
So I think that's now kind of gone away. The only thing I've learned in these spots, it's a big difference when you're going to the Super Bowl in weather like this. And you can start feeling the weather when you're down. I am a believer in that in sports, and I see it all the time still. When it's raining and you're playing a football game and you're losing, how many times do you see a team's check out and be like, I just want to get the blank out of here and get to my warm bus and go home?
Yeah. Enjoy my off season and hop on a boat and head to the Cayman Islands.
I just want to get out of here. And I don't think the Chiefs are going to do this. But again, in a big spot, your muscles start to tighten. Certain things happen in these spots. I don't think the weather plays really much of a role as I did the prior week with the Colts. I think the Chiefs really proved themselves last week. I think, again, Jared, it comes down to when they're down in a big spot, which I think might happen in this game, are the Chiefs able to go down the field and get a big touchdown? It's a big question mark, and it's not one that anyone can answer. I just think in these spots and knowing who the Pats are, I think the Pats will have a lead at some point in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter. Can the Chiefs drive down and win?
Well,
we'll find out.
It's either going to be that or they're going to be up 3 with a minute and a half to go in the game, and they didn't kill the clock. You know, maybe they score too quickly and give the Patriots that one last chance. So
it's weird and it's ironic. I actually think that's a better spot for the Chiefs this year. Because Brady and those guys just do not have the same athletes. It's just not as easy.
It takes them longer to get down the field. It definitely takes them a lot longer.
I think if I'm the Chiefs, I want to be up late even when Brady has the ball. You don't want to be down. Don't be down in this game. Stay ahead. Keep it on them. Because I think as the game goes on, if you're behind, I think the pressure might be suffocating. So that's your playoff weekend. Again, 3 o'clock, 6:40 on Fox and CBS. I think both games really have a lot of intrigue to it. It's old versus new. I mean, you got all the different things here. Unfortunately, I just do see the veterans winning in both spots. But I think it could. I think this is a great, and you don't always get this. Last year is a good example. I didn't think Jacksonville had any chance of winning the Super Bowl. I just didn't, if I'm being truthful.
All right.
In these spot, though, this year, Jared, you can make an argument about it. Not only these guys winning, but the team winning the Super Bowl.
Well, because
either one of these four.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it from the beginning of the season. You know, nothing's changed with the Rams and the Chiefs. They've been solid teams from jump. Period.
They're good.
You know.
And by the way, for us Browns, we need to be recognizing that the Rams play in the other division, but we play them next year. We play the NFC West. And I'm telling you, you look at teams like this, Rams, Chiefs. They're going to be right there with the Browns. And they got a year up on us because they're playing these games already. So that's going to play a factor next year. And there's nothing you can do about it. And that's going to happen no matter what in sports. But it's just something to keep in mind. You know, when the Chiefs and Browns play next year, they happen to play in the playoffs. A big advantage on spec goes to the Chiefs because they're playing these games already. And they're feeling the pressure mounting of it. And it's hard to replicate that in the regular season game or in a practice. It'll be interesting to see. Let's go through quickly the Cavs and Indians.
Cleveland Cavaliers.
The Cavs, they finally win a game. Thank God they won in L.A. Against with the Lakers without LeBron, but who cares? LeBron played or did not. Yeah, they won. This awful 2-week road swing finally ends tonight. They played their last game in Denver on a back-to-back. They played in Utah last night. Really wasn't competitive. I know the score was under 20, but it really wasn't competitive throughout. Tonight they played the Nuggets, and then they finally come back home after this very, very long road trip that started in the deep south and went to L.A. and went to Portland and swung back around. And by the way, the Cavs have another late West Coast swing in late March. So the Cavs still have one more West Coast swing in them. You know, the thing, I've been listening to different podcasts, Jared. I've been reading a bunch of articles and stuff. here's just the key things to run down. I don't think we should do individual players today, and how much do we hate Chetty Osman and how much do we frustrate us. We're not going to do that today. But here's some things I think to keep your eye on as you're moving forward. Kevin Love still doesn't have a timetable when he's returning.
I don't expect him back anytime soon.
Kevin Love is also not going to be traded this year. I think it's going to be nearly impossible. The guy's worth is going to be very low. So Kevin Love will be a Cav going into the offseason. Whether that stays throughout the whole offseason is a different question, but through the rest of this year, whenever he comes back, he will be a Cav through and through. Tristan Thompson was out with an injury. If people who like the Kardashian stuff, you can Google this today, and there's several articles about whether they're getting engaged, breaking off the engagement, Kardashians out. If you love that stuff, Tristan and Khloe, it's a great day to read it because it's all over the internet. And it's, again, it's not my kind of stuff, but you Google Tristan Thompson and the first 5 things that came up was Khloe Kardashian breaking off engagement stuff. So you can read all about that on the internet. I'm sure it's very interesting at certain points to certain people. I just think the bigger thing, the big 3 things that you and I kind of talked about on the phone the other day, defense has been terrible. The lack of leadership, the lack of chemistry on his team has really stood out. People can be hard on Colin Sexton, but he's really had where to lean at times. I think
I had a lot to say about this. I was really not happy with the way that Colin was talked down to and treated following. And forgive me for not having the information in front of me right now, but it was last week sometime. He was asked after a loss what it's like, this season, whatever. And his answer was, he's glad the team's sticking together through thick and thin and that they're having a good time. And one of the reporters, a Cleveland reporter, bounced right back at him and in a snarky way and said, having fun. And it's like, dude, come on, man. He's 19 years old. He's learning this whole new world. He's playing decent basketball. He has no one to lean on. Like you said, back off, man. Just let the kid play, and let's see what this team can build around him next season. Because I told you, I have this feeling that we're not going to see a lot of Kevin Love this year. Tristan's kind of backed out, off of his.
He'll be back.
Well, but I mean, he hasn't played the same. He's not playing like he's trying to win. Like he's playing for big money for next season.
There was a 6-week run in November, December where Tristan Thompson wasn't just playing well. He was playing almost like an all-star,
right?
Like low level, meaning like he wasn't going to start or anything, but he wouldn't have been crazy to think at one point, my gosh, if he keeps playing like this,
we're going to
get traded.
We're going to get an idea of what this team is looking to do next season. We're not seeing any of it right now. We're not going to have any beat on any of the plans for the future of the Cavaliers. But what I can tell you is this, Andy, the more that I have been watching the team, the more that I realize that Colin Sexton has no one to lean on, the more I realize this team really needs leadership more than anything. And I don't know how they're going to get that, but what I am hoping is whoever they draft, with whatever lottery pick they get, with however high up it is, whether it's Zion, I need to know that this is somebody that you can build a future around as a leader. That, I think, is more important than anything else, and I don't know that exists right now.
Yeah, the one thing I'll bring up that I started hearing, which I thought was good that someone started echoing, and it was David Griffin, actually, ironically. The Cavs have really been injured this year, and they've really been banged up in a lot of areas. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, you know what? He's right.
Yeah. And it's played into their favor. It's playing into their favor for next year.
It is. Look, again, sometimes things are captain obvious. The Browns next year on the field. We are now reversing course. It is a huge offseason for this front office. And this is the first time in a while we said this about the Cavs, probably since the 2010 days where LeBron left. It is a huge, huge offseason. Because we'll go through the roster at some point. When you go through the roster, there's not just holes, there's gaps. Leadership. Is Colin Sexton really a point guard?
Right.
What are you going to really do with Rodney Hood? Are you committed to this? Can you actually sit Clarkson as much as you can? Because Clarkson's one of your better players, and you may need to start him. His minutes are now up to 30 a game now. I think you got to start playing Clarkson more. I think you got to start really looking at this team going, where do we really go from here? How do we really get better? Because, Jared, when we did the run-through on the roster on the phone, there are not just holes. There's gaps. major gaps here on what you do.
Yeah.
So again, it's a mulligan. It's a throwaway year. It does happen in basketball. You kind of see it in baseball too, but this is one of those years for the Cavs and the NBA. Throwaway year. Ooh. But I don't want to be saying that next year.
No, because you can see,
I don't want to be saying that,
and it's happening sooner than I thought it would. And a lot of it has to do with the on the court issues between Kevin Durant and Green. That domination and those things are going to start to break up sooner than I expected, and I think that puts the Cavs on a quicker timetable to make something happen with their situation. I didn't think I was going to care as much for the next couple years. I have a feeling I'm going to care next season, if that makes sense.
I just don't want to go back to this keep rebuilding mode. I'll take it for a season, but I don't want to be here next year saying, well, let's look forward to the lottery. How many games can we lose? Like, I don't want to do that next year. I don't want to do it. Anyways, that's the Cavs for right now.
Cleveland Indians.
Cody Allen and the Indians are going to finally part ways, which we all knew. It's now basically being rumored, no official announcement that he's going to be going to the Angels. Into the run here for Cody Allen, who is really a very good reliever. I don't know if you could say he's one of the best ever relievers for the Indians, but I'll say he was a stopgap. He was huge in 16. He was huge in the playoff runs. He had one bad moment in 17 against the Yankees in Game 5, but outside of that, he was really good too in that quick 17 series, even though they weren't in the playoffs long. Cody Allen's going to be remembered fondly for me. I thought Cody really had a nice career here in Cleveland, Jared. Yeah. Oh, I thought he was really a good closer. Not an elite, but he was a very good closer.
No, it was like Jose Mesa. He would get himself into trouble. I would be traumatized, and then he'd get himself out of it. That's how that went. I would get worked up. Like, what is he doing? Oh, boy, he's putting another guy on. Oh, he gave up that base hit. And then all of a sudden, all right, he got out of it. Thank God. Everything.
No, agreed.
It was Jose Mesa 2.0. That's how I felt.
It really was. I mean, here's the difference. Borowski got in those spots, and you really didn't know Borowski could ever get out of it. At least in Cody Allen, you knew, hey, there's going to be all runners all over the bases. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. And by the way, he was one of the best pitchers I saw who would get a 6-4-3 or a 4-5-3 double play. Yeah. Like he got. I'm sorry, 5-4-5-3, 4-6-3 double play. He would get double plays up the middle more than any other reliever I ever saw from the Indians. He was not a fly ball out pitcher only. He got outs in different ways. I do think this is the right move for each party. Yeah. I thought Cody Allen coming back, it didn't make sense with Brad Hand being there. I also think for the Angel standpoint for Cody Allen, it makes a lot of sense. Same with Andrew Miller. It just doesn't make sense with Simber here now. Yep. It's time to move on. These pieces were great. The cash flow's not there. The Indians need to put cash flow somewhere else. So I thought this was a good break for everybody involved. I'm happy for Cody. I wish him the best until he plays the Indians. And same with Andrew Miller with the Cardinals. I just think it's the end of a run. We are going to get into this more in the spring, but the Indians are going to have a lot more turnover than what people probably think who don't pay attention. The lineup still, I don't think, in my opinion, are set. On the Indians trade front, I did another search this morning, Jared. Nothing really has developed from what I saw last week at all. It has gone very quiet again.
It was that flared up and then went right back down in a matter of 3 days.
Right back to normal.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how to read this. I think at certain points, this is kind of the team. The one thing that's being held up in baseball right now is the Bryce Harper and Manny Machado sightings, which hasn't really happened yet. So people should stay patient. This might go into February, in my opinion, because you're almost through January. So you might have another few weeks here, which is so odd. Baseball used to be ahead of it, and now they're kind of drawn out this whole free agency process. It is always nice in baseball knowing what your team is going to be like by the end of January and early February. It's not like that anymore. It's going to be more like, I think, February, Jared, before we start really realizing what this team is. So keep your eye on that kind of stuff. I think that's where the Indians are at. And again, a tip of the cap to Cody Allen, who was very good in big spots for the Indians. And I think sometimes by a couple people out there on Twitter and whatever else was getting too harsh of a comment. Again, to say he was elite wouldn't be fair either, but I thought he was a very good player for the Indians. And it's kind of sad to see him go. Well,
it's another familiar face that is leaving, and we're realizing that it's another this era in Cleveland Indians baseball. Nice 4 years is changing, and I'm just hoping that they can maintain their dominance in at least the AL Central and see where that can take them. Again, we're still waiting on moves to happen to either help the outfield, to solidify the bullpen. I'm confused about what's going on at catcher still. I don't care what the moves. That's all it did for me. It's confused me.
Pilecki and Roberto Perez.
And the big thing is, Andy, bats. How is this offense going to look this year? Because if they can't put up runs, it's going to be a rough year.
I'm going to pause there so I can go on a long rant. But yeah, I think that's what the Indians are at right now. We just want to make an announcement on here. We're very excited to say we're going to the Pulse Network starting on Tuesday. I know, Jared and I, you've been talking about this for the last week or so. Yeah. We're very excited that they're picking us up. We're going to be the official home for the Browns. We will stick to some of the same things we do here on this podcast for people to listen. We're very excited about it. A lot more announcements. You'll see me more on Twitter talking about it. Jared's already been doing it. But we're very excited about this move, and we're going to be starting a new one on Tuesday. And then we'll probably have to talk to the guys over there. We're either going to do one a week or two a week, depending on what's going on. Because we're the Browns, I don't know if it's necessary to do one every week or do two a week right now. But we'll definitely be doing one a week. And Jared, will let you talk. I'm very excited about this, and we're thrilled about going to the Pulse Network. Should be cool.
Yeah, so Pulse Podcast Network, being the official representatives, not of representing our podcast for the Cleveland Browns, not the Cleveland Browns themselves, but we're the people.
Oh yeah, if I jumbled that, I apologize.
No, I don't think you did. I'm trying to make sure I don't confuse it, because I would never want the Browns to go, wait a minute, you're not speaking for us. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that on that. Hey, we might be soon. I don't know. Is Nathan Zagura going to be upset if we take his spot? So we might eventually sometime. Browns, if you're listening, we'll be glad to do it. But
we are really available, especially in the Baltimore and Cheshire, Connecticut area.
Yeah, exactly. But just to also mention, the website is now available. It's andyandjared.com or clevelandandbeyond.net. Both of those websites will take you to the same place where you can easily follow the podcast, see the latest stuff that comes out. We're running a Tumblr blog as well, where we're trying to keep you updated on whether it be trades, trade rumors, events, whatever the talk is. I'm sure that we'll be doing some commentary via the Tumblr blog that's also attached to that site, and you can also reach out and shoot us emails through the website as well. Again, that's clevelandandbeyond.net or andyandjared.com.
Yeah, and there'll be more to come on that, and we'll definitely be more having an impulse. So for those of you who don't like .net, don't worry, you can go to .com, vice versa. We are very equal opportunity people here. We know some people get nervous about .net, so we want to make sure everybody feels good and comfortable. And of course, I'm teasing with that comment, but we're very excited about this. There'll be more news to come. Real quickly, as I'm watching my Boilermakers play Indiana right now, 11-7 early on. Michigan lost today. They for their first loss of the year, they lost to Wisconsin. The other thing to talk about is college basketball does really ramp up. I'm a huge basketball fan. I'll probably start doing more of that on the blog and Tumblr and whatnot. The game to watch is at 6 o'clock. It's Duke and UVA. Duke had their second loss of the year. They lost to the Cuse in a heartbreaker at home. They play in Cameron tonight against UVA. UVA is also undefeated. It's a big spot for UVA, in my opinion. Duke's played everybody as they normally do, Jared. But I think if people who are watching and needing a break from football, which I'm actually one of those rare people, I like when the Super Bowl happens because I need a change in sports. I get excited about baseball, and I love college basketball and like the NBA, so I get excited about it. That's a good game to watch. The thing for people to start eyeballing that has happened recently to a local team that I don't follow as much as Jared, but the Buckeyes have lost 4 in a row. Yeah. Really have had some hard times. It kind of started with the Rutgers loss. That was Rutgers' first win over a ranked team in a long time. Rutgers is terrible. Purdue just beat them by 40 points at home. That was a really, really poor loss. And the thing that stands out, as Jared and I were remarking before we came on, offensive struggles, shooting, more turnovers and assists. The Buckeyes right now are having a very hard time running an offense that scores points and or is effective.
That was one of the biggest things that I've noticed is they do not know how to move the ball around on the court. It looks really, really like they're struggling. They're forcing a lot of shots. When they're getting down by a few, they're digging their holes even bigger at those points. I have been watching more. As much as I said I wanted to avoid it, now of course I start watching, and the Buckeyes start playing as terribly as they have been. I watched a lot of that Rutgers game. It was painful. And last night, I didn't even realize it until last night. My wife and I went out to a place to go grab a cocktail and have dinner. And I look up at the screen. Oh, the Buckeyes are playing Maryland. Oh, wait a minute. Maryland's ranked, what, 19th, something like that? Buckeyes, what are you ranked? Oh, you fell out of the rankings already. Wow, that's weird.
I know.
And then they just got blasted in the second half. And could not score whatsoever. So
there's one thing to lose. Right now, you can always feel this way in sports. That Rutgers loss stings if you're Ohio State. It just stings. You don't want to lose to a team like that. Again, losses to Minnesota, Purdue, throw these teams out there, Wisconsin, that happened today. Those things can happen. You don't want to lose to the bottom feeders of the league, Jared.
Yeah.
That's when things start happening. Another team, too, that Purdue's playing right now is Indiana. Indiana's kind of fallen through a rough patch as well. So teams that are playing up in December are kind of going through their winter swoons are the Hoosiers and the Buckeyes. Purdue's played a lot better lately. Wisconsin, they just won a big game. Michigan State still really rule the landscape. It's a debate between the ACC and Big Ten, which is a better conference. I think they're both pretty even at times, depending on who you talk to. But again, college basketball really starts getting ramped up. I am a big college basketball fan, so I'll be watching a lot more. I'll drop in more insight. And again, a good place to start tonight at 6 o'clock, Duke and UVA. It's a great game. It's in Cameron. They're coming off a loss. Duke just lost Young for a good part of the year, maybe for the season. So it's a good game to watch and get yourself reacclimated. And, UVA, for people who love sports, it is fascinating to watch the first ever team that's a 1 seed, kind of the loss to a 16, play their way through. And UVA so far hasn't been shook. I give them a lot of credit. They've really done a nice job. I'm interested to see if that continues, and that's for another podcast for another day. But anyways, Duke and UVA tonight. We talked about the other football games. Really, sports get sprinkled throughout. And I think the last thing, it's painful. The Nuggets do play the Caps tonight. They ended that road trip. It's in Denver. I think it's at 8 or 9 o'clock. People have to check. But anyways, that's tonight as well. And then that will wrap up really the things to watch this weekend. Everything else, nothing really must see, anything like that. None of the other college basketball games really caught my eye. And again, going into next week, we're going to be doing this new podcast with the Pulse Pod Network. And now I've rambled on way too long. And there you go.
Yep.
But that's kind of the landscape of sports. And, in the next one, too, Jared, we should go through the roster for the Browns, possible free agent moves, and I think more importantly, going through the other teams in the AFC, teams that we know are going to be around, teams that are transitioning, rebuilding. It's good to start getting a landscape of not just Cleveland, but now other teams.
Yeah.
Before free agency starts, where do really teams head going in the offseason? We'll do a little bit of that more, too, on the next podcast.
Yep. Just want to reiterate, glad to be a part of the Pulse Podcast Network. Official launch for us on that network will be this next Tuesday. We've signed our lives away, and hopefully it all works out for all of us on all sides, and for you, of course, the listener.
I'm looking forward to my Groupon checks coming soon, and all my Pulse Podcast hats and T-shirts. I'm sure you're getting some too, and it'll be very exciting to support. But no, it's a good thing. We're excited about it, and those guys have been very nice to us so far. I guess the final thing, again, in all these games and stuff, really the thing from the Freddie Kitchens week, now it's kind of gone and passed, and that's kind of what happened earlier this week. I think the bigger thing to watch for if you're the Browns fan, watch the Chiefs and say to yourself, next year at this time, could you be doing this with a team that's going through all this experience and win an Arrowhead?
Yeah.
That's the question you got to ask yourself, because it's a long road to get there. And I think you watch a team like the Chiefs have a similar quarterback. We have a younger head coach, but have a younger amount of players on there. Two organizations that haven't really won. I mean, the Chiefs haven't won a Super Bowl since 70.
No, I've paid close attention to them this year for that exact reason. They just felt like what I was hoping we would become, and that still seems to be the case. So,
yeah, I would watch the Chiefs and say, can you beat the team? Because they're going to be back next year.
Yep.
And there's not a question. I think you can debate the Saints because of Breeze. You can debate the Pats because at some point they have to fall off the cliff. But the teams like the Rams, and the Browns do play the Rams next year. They play them at home, so that's a good home game to go see. But the Chiefs especially, you're going to be playing against that team and going through that team at some point. Can you beat them in a big spot? It's something to watch. Aside from everything else has been going on in Berea, it's what's ahead. What will the Chiefs? And by the way, if the Chiefs win this game, how does that affect things? Because they'll be the heavy favorite next year, Jared. No matter what happens in the Super Bowl, if the Chiefs win this game, heavy favorites probably to win it all.
He's Andy Billman. I'm Jared Watson. Andy and Jared, Cleveland and beyond, a part of the Pulse Podcast Network. Thanks for tuning in. And, let's watch these playoff games and see what the Chiefs do. Maybe they'll surprise the Pats. We'll see what happens.
Maybe, and I think one other thing to watch. Can I say the Pulse Podcast Network correctly? Pulse Podcast Network. Pulse Podcast Network.
Yeah, I'm glad you got that pop guard in front of your microphone, too.
What a lovely thing. Worth every bit of my $13.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Hey, don't forget to follow Andy and Jared, Cleveland and Beyond on Facebook at facebook.com/Cleveland and Beyond, and on Twitter at CLE and Beyond. That's at CLE and Beyond on Twitter. You can also shoot us an email, andyandjared@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing your comments.